Hello everyone, my name is Mitali. Welcome to the 2020 Asia Conference on AI and Big Data. I'm excited and honored to be here and doing this opening keynote session for all of you who've joined us virtually from many parts of the globe. This is all very new to all of us. I want to thank the organizers and Unlock Design for providing me with this platform to have a conversation with you here about a topic which is very real and much needed in today's world. About 6 months ago, when I was approached to do this keynote, I was given the flexibility to pick the topics of my choice. And I thought to myself, I work for Intel and I lead the Analytics and DevOps organization out of the India site. I deal with data engineering problems every day, even when I was not a part of the Analytics and DevOps organization, because that's what software companies today and anybody who works out of the internet business deals with. Now, I cannot go into the details of the specific problems we are working on currently as a company. However, what I can talk about is the problems that I have observed in adopting the solutions in a corporation as large as Intel here. As a company, everybody I'm assuming most of you are familiar with what Intel does as a company. It is a company that's distributed around the globe, which was established 50 plus years ago, and it started out as a chip manufacturing company. Now, over the years, it has evolved and has done multiple, going into microprocessors and manufacturing laptops. When you talk about cutting edge technology, most of the employees at Intel work on things that are yet to be delivered and exposed to the rest of the world years ahead of their times. We have teams that are in India, in Penang, Shanghai, and in multiple locations in the US and in Europe. It is a truly global company. And over the last few years, we have been going through, like many other organizations, through data-centric transformations. And the investment in AI is pretty heavy. When it comes to me, I have worked with teams across the globe for many of these sites based on my roles. I've spent 15 years at Intel. I've lived here. I was born in India, but I spent major part of my working years in the US and Canada, about 14 years. And few years back, I relocated back to India for multiple reasons. What I've seen is no matter where I go, the technology adoption issues are very, very similar. And even when the technology is cutting edge, and we all know from the core of our gut and know as in engineers, the adoption is where we have seen most problems. And in the next few minutes, that is what I'm going to talk to you about. The art of data analytics, not the science, not the mathematics behind it, not that they're not important and they're not close to my heart. I'm an electrical engineer by degree, and have been a software engineer and worked at Intel for long enough to know that I speak data. My language over the years has translated, and the way I talk to my kids, you should listen to that. You will not know that's how a parent should talk to the kids. Anyways, I work in the client computing group of Intel, where my group is leading the transformation of Intel's traditional business processes. We are modernizing how decision making can be done in a future version of the company. And in order to do this, we need to take years and years of experience of shipping, client platforms or server platforms out the door, capturing those into data models and applying the analytics science and the maths behind it and the algorithms, not just to understand consumer behavior, but also to streamline, optimize our own business processes inside. And for a corporation as large as Intel, where processes and methodologies have been set for decades, it takes an organized approach to transform the way the business happens. And a key element of this transformation is to take people along with you as we move forward. So let's just dive into the topics. Now, how many people have have been looking at this data in the last 24 hours, or even the last 1 week, or in the past few months. And if we were in the same room at the same time, I would like to see a raise of hands to find out. And I am 100% sure that almost every person on the face of this earth, not just the people that are logging in and listening in right now, has looked at some version of this data in the last 24 hours. This is the live COVID-19 statistics published by the World Health Organization. Here is another view of the same data. This shows, the data over here shows daily trends over the last few months. You can get a weekly view. You can slice and dice the data by country and get different angles to the same set of data, different views. Now, why do we look at this data? Is it because we love data? Or is it because we are fans of bell curves? What is it, right? And as much as we love pretty charts, you and I both know, and that is not the reason. Now, my dad, who is retired from his job, and my mom, who is a homemaker, they both click on this link on their smartphones that they have available today, every day at breakfast, to check out how the graph looks today. And it is because we want to know, what do we as an individual need to do next? What should I do? What should be my next course of action? Now, don't get me wrong, right? As I said, the science and maths behind this is pretty amazing. It gives us the power to look at past trends. It gives us the ability to predict the future to a certain extent, right? But is that enough for corporations and for humanity in general to start using this? Now let's take a look at this graph. What does this tell us? Everybody should be familiar with this graph. I took this chart recently, in a couple of days back, where traffic in Bangalore, which is where I reside in right now, is pretty free flowing. So you don't see any reds or oranges or any traffic jams, right? But if this were a regular normal day, you will see red patches all over the place, right? And it's not just in Bangalore, any metropolitan city around the world, which means we don't take this road at this point of the time in the day. And if I'm planning how I reach from point A, Koramangala, to my Intel offices, I actually figure out the routes, right? I know which roads to take, I know which turns to take, and I decide which turns not to take. And what this means is, we see red and we know that's not where we need to go. We see green and we say, this is where we need to go. And that is what it comes down to when we talk about the art of data science. This graph tells me how long it's going to take. What is the approximate delay expected? And if I drill down, it'll even tell me, take 2 steps and then take a left, and take 4 steps and then take a right? And this right here is at the heart of data analytics. I think this is the epitome, the largest success story of big data that exists today and is in mass use around the globe. The representation of the data is very simple for any user to understand. You don't need to, know science or be a technologist to understand that red, orange, green are the colors that we all grew up with. We knew red means stop, don't go, don't do that. And, orange means it's an orange flag. We need to watch out, but green means, yeah, go, right? So you don't need to train your user to use this. And most importantly, it tells the user exactly what she or he can do or not do. Doesn't leave much room for interpretation. So you can take an action based on this real time. The complex algorithms, the large data sets that has been gathered over time, right, to train the system on determining or predicting how traffic is going to be in Bangalore. It's all hidden, the correlation, it's all hidden from the user. And we represent only what is important for him or her to make a decision. Now, data science is not new. It has been around for decades now. However, the way we have begun to consume data has grown multitudes in the last few years. And almost all of us generate and consume terabytes of data every day. The information that our devices are putting out there is phenomenal. It is as if we are leaving our digital DNA just out there to be reconstructed and discovered, right? But anyways, let's not get carried away too much with the digital information that we leave there. So the question I want to ask you all today is, what can we do with all the data that is out there? What can you do there? Data is information, and there is actually, no matter what anyone tells you, there is such a thing as information overload. Now, you don't want to overload people with information. People have looked at the data for years now. No one wants to look at more data. The real problem in front of us is, can the data talk to me? Can you make the data talk to the user? Can it tell you what to do and what not? And when we talk about transforming traditional businesses and corporations like Intel, what I'm talking about is transforming how businesses have been run traditionally over years, decades and decades of data. And this is both a challenge and an opportunity today. 4 months ago, if you ask someone, can you transform how companies run today? The answer would have been, yeah, it's a weak one, maybe, right? But it's very difficult to change that. But look at us today. Look at how the world has transformed in the past 4 months. And if the entire world can learn in less than a month how to operate and work remotely, I think a large corporation such as Intel or anybody else, right, can change too. And the key is to put constraints and not let the system, right, I'm saying the system, which means thousands and thousands of people and the processes set with it, have and fall back on plan B every now and then. That is the key here. Now we have established that we're all changing the way we work, the way we live, the way we communicate, and even the way we collaborate. And look at this keynote speech, right? Where I'm sitting here in this room talking to my walls, right? And each of us, right, we're doing the same thing, but within us, right, each of us have the power to change and bring in one positive change, even if it's a small change, which can be a step in the right direction forward. I want to leave you with two personal stories today, one about creating change and one about managing change. Let's just dive right in. First one, when we think about change and when we think about big change, I want you to remember that it is not as big as it looks when you break it down into smaller bits. And that's something that has stopped me personally anytime from making a big change. I'm a part of a small software group at Intel, which is changing today as to how platform product release decisions are made. Decision making in the compute client industry has been an experience-driven one traditionally, right? One that is built on decades of knowledge and product postmortems or retrospectives, right? For every product release, there are a bunch of meetings where we gather, data is looked at, data is gathered where data doesn't exist. It gets reviewed once every week, once every 2 weeks. Decisions are made. Do we ship the product now? Is the quality of the product meeting the criteria that we set, right? What are some of the risks, right? Are there any gaps that we need to look at? These decisions are very subjective, even though the metrics are well defined. And the reason? The data is not in a single place today. It exists in different systems, in distributed spreadsheets, sometimes in individuals' mailboxes, and occasionally in their heads. And how do you bring about change in a large corporation to shed the tried and tested methods and move thousands plus people along with you towards a connected ecosystem at the same time? How do you translate years of experience, gut-based decisions that people are used to take and organizations have taken successfully over the years, and move the needle towards an algorithm-driven system without jeopardizing business? And the answer is, you do it slowly. I am privileged to be part of this small group at Intel that is making waves inside the corporation. We are breaking the problem into smaller chunks, the large correlated data into smaller sets. We first started out by building the base infrastructure that is required to even create this completely automated decision-making process, and then training these decision makers on how to read and interpret the data. Is it done already? No. Are we there yet? I don't think so. But we are definitely a lot closer to it than we were a year back. The second story that I want to share today is again a personal one, but this is from my personal life around managing change. 4 years ago, my husband and I decided that we want to move back to India from the United States. And we'd spent collectively, 14 years in the US. Now, this decision was a hard one. And given that both of us are engineers and we love data, we have a whiteboard at our home, right? I can go on and on. We needed it to be data based, right? We drew up matrices around the organization, both his work and my work. And we started putting down stuff in terms of what makes sense for us, right? What makes sense for the move? What are the statistics about successful moves that people have done? We started pinging people and talking to them about, why they moved, what worked for them, what didn't work for them. And we started listing down the reasons of why it may not work. And then at one point, we just had to stop and we say, you know what? We can't look at the reasons of why it doesn't have to stop. And finally, it came down to, we want to make the move. Let's just make the move from one system to another. And we know that some things will work and some will not. And we need to figure those out as we go along. And it is exactly the same when we talk about creating transformations in our workplace. You don't always know the answer. Even with the abundant data that we all have access to, there is always an element of surprise lurking around the corner. Many of you out there are students of data science, waiting to get out there to the world, make a difference. Some of you are in the middle of a major data overhaul in your organizations, like me. And if you're like me, you will admit that change is hard, even when everybody knows it's for the better, and that's what we need to do. And it's harder when the technology and the mechanism is new to people. When people can't understand something, they are either scared of it, or they resist it, or they deny it. Your job as data engineers and data scientists, as change agents, is to simplify it for them. Remember Google Maps? Now, can we all hide all the intricacies, the complexities, and show only people what they care about, what they can do with? And finally, I want to leave you with this thought. What happens to the world in the post-COVID era? How will businesses make decisions? What data we need to store? How do we enable remote decision-making structures? Right? Is it possible that the world will ever come back to normal? Now that's a bigger question. The world has changed for sure, but how can you enable decision makers to use their data to be better prepared for the future? Do you have what it takes to address what the future needs? Thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a great day at the conference. Goodbye, take care, and stay safe.